Welcome, everyone. It is 6 p.m. on March 5th. You can't? My mic, the mic is on. You want me to try again? You can't hear me? I can even hear me. And I mumble. Yeah, the microphone's on, right? You can hear me out there. Okay. Get all the feedback. Is this microphone better? Okay.
Jay, you want to try your start?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. It's 6 p.m. on March 5th, and welcome to tonight's public hearing. My name is Linus Kafka. I'm a zoning examiner for the city of Tucson. We have one case scheduled for the public hearing tonight. And before we begin, I ask you to turn your phones to mute or silent if you've not already. As zoning examiner, I conduct rezoning hearings on behalf of the mayor and council, make findings of fact, which I put into a written report along with my recommendation, which I send to the mayor and council for consideration and for their final decision. My reports will be based on the information submitted to me, which includes the rezoning application, the staff report, written approvals and protests, correspondence, and testimony given at tonight's hearing. I'll also include in the record all documents submitted to me up to the close of the public hearing. Tonight's proceedings are being recorded. When I call on you to testify, please speak clearly into the microphone and begin your testimony by stating your name and your address. And we also have a sign-in sheet, which I'll ask you to put your name down on if you're not already listed on the agenda. For the rezoning cases, I'll complete a preliminary report within 5 working days after the public hearing has closed. I'll then prepare a final report, which will be issued 14 days after the public hearing is closed. If you'd like to receive a copy of any of the report's recommendations, and you're not listed as a party of record in one of the cases you want to see, you can send an email to tucsonrezoning@tucsonaz.gov or call the City of Tucson Planning and Development Services Department. My final report on the rezoning will be sent to the mayor and council for the scheduled public hearing on that case. The mayor and council will then vote on the matter based on my recommendation, along with other factors they take into consideration. Here's how the procedure of tonight's hearing will go. First, I will ask the Planning and Development Services Department staff, Mr. Olivas, to give the report. The applicant will then give their presentation. The public will be invited to testify at that point, and then the applicant can respond to issues raised, any issues or questions during the hearing. Once again, if you do come up to the podium to speak, please put your name down if you're not already on the agenda. For anyone who's planning to speak today, I'd request that you stand at this time. And I'll ask you if you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. All right. Thank you. With that, let's begin with case number TPENT 1225-00024, TUSD Lions School, East Dogwood Street. Mr. Olivas.
Good evening. Jay Olivas, City of Tucson Planning Staff. This is a request by Lazarus and Sylvan on behalf of KB Home to rezone approximately 10.02 acres of property located at 7555 East Dogwood Street. The applicant is proposing a rezoning from suburban ranch to urban residence R2 on 10.02 acres to accommodate a 63-lot single-family residential subdivision with maximum height limits up to 25 feet, with centralized local public streets and common open space. The proposed density is approximately 6.29 dwelling units per acre. The project will utilize flexible lot development option to develop the single-family residential project. There were two neighborhood meetings on November 12th, 2025 and December 2nd, 2025 regarding this project. Some issues raised by the residents include design of proposed lighting, rear yard setbacks for two-story homes, home sizes, number of bedrooms, color palettes, design guidelines, potential for accessory dwelling units, and estimated time to begin construction. These issues were all addressed by the applicant's team. In terms of land use compatibility, the proposed urban residence zone R2 under Unified Development Code Section 4.79 is compatible with immediate surrounding R2 and R3 zone subdivisions to the north, south, and east, which contain the same or similar type zoning. The proposed R2 zone provides for urban medium-density residential development together with schools, parks, and other public services. The project site is also adjacent to the existing 11.9 acre Groves City Park to the west. In terms of design compatibility, the applicant prepared a design compatibility report, and the proposed preliminary development plan illustrates the proposed development is compliant with relevant Plan Tucson South Pantano Area Plan and the Groves Neighborhood Plan policies. The developer is proposing a combination of 1 and 2 story homes up to 25 feet in height, which is consistent with residential development in that area. The proposed project will be designed using the FLD option, flexible lot development standards. An architectural variation plan and privacy mitigation plan will be required at the time of tentative plat submittal. The architectural variation plan requires units to provide a variation of colors, materials, shape, and roof lines to avoid a monotonous type design. The privacy mitigation plan requires implementation of certain window and privacy techniques to preserve existing residents' privacy where 2 story homes abut existing single-family homes. Perimeter block walls along the residential lot rear yards will provide buffering to adjacent land, and graffiti on walls on any other location on the site has been conditioned to be removed within 72 hours. Primary vehicular access will be from East Dogwood Street. There will be emergency access at the northeast corner of the project with removable bollards. Also, there regarding the Groves Park access, bike paths and trails, the applicant will provide bike pedestrian access at the northeast corner onto Queen Palm Drive in support of the future Ponciana Bike Boulevard with a 10 to 12 foot wide shared path and sidewalk. The developer will provide access to the adjacent Groves Park at the southwest corner from the project from East Dogwood Street with a 6 foot wide sidewalk. This will be a condition of rezoning that the access connection to Groves Park be coordinated and approved by the City of Tucson Parks and Recreation Department. Additionally, landscape and screening is provided along the northern boundary, southern boundary, and within the central common area. In conclusion, the proposed rezoning is consistent with and supported by the policy direction provided in Plan Tucson, the South Pantano Area Plan, and the Groves Neighborhood Plan, subject to compliance with the attached preliminary conditions. Therefore, approval of the requested R2 zoning is appropriate. Staff would like to note the approval, protest calculations, and comments. We the approval protest calculations, there were total of 4 approvals and 5 protests. 4 of the protests were within 150 feet. And also the Groves Lincoln Park Neighborhood Association has an approval letter in support of the project. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, and I received the updated approval and protest calculation earlier this week. Ms. Lazarus, are you giving the presentation? Great.
Many years ago, so it's all good. I go by both. I'm representing KB Home. I'm going to be a little bit repetitive of staff. I'll try and skim over those points as much as I can skim over things. I want to introduce a couple people who are here who also stood up and may speak in case you have any questions. With KB Home, Kelly Lee, Senior Director of Forward Planning. Adam Call, who's also with Forward Planning with KB. Robin Large is here with my firm, and then Corey Thompson and Stephen Vasquez are here with Rick Engineering as well. It's very clear, I think. Where am I pointing this again? Oh, it worked. Okay. I went too far. Okay, got it. I think the map is in the submittal information, but the project area is 10 acres. It's the old Lyons Elementary School. It's been closed since 2014 and intermittently used by various organizations as TUSD has given permission. And the goal here is really to provide an opportunity for housing at the entry level home buyer and those downsizing and providing a mix of densities similar to what we see in the neighborhood. The current zoning is SR. That's kind of one of our holding zones. It's just never been rezoned before. As most of us, I think, in the room know, when a school goes in, it doesn't have to comply with zoning. So schools can go into any zone. So it's just never been rezoned. We're surrounded by R2 and R3 zoning. So our request is for the R2 zoning, the lower density zoning, knowing that we're surrounded by both R2 and R3. The goal is to integrate this into the neighborhood. I'm going to talk through a little bit of the flexible lot subdivision proposal, because in large part for those folks who came to the neighborhood meetings that we had, they've been very receptive, similar concerns to some of the concerns you're seeing in the protests, but once they understand some of the protections that are in there, that actually garnered most of our support letters after we were able to explain how we're mitigating many of those issues. So in R2, the maximum number of homes based just on density is about 87. We are actually proposing 63. So even though we're using the flexible lot subdivision and could, in theory, maximize that, if not ask for more density, we are not. We're staying under the R2 density with those standards. This was the slide during the neighborhood meeting where we just kind of explained what FLD was. It's a cluster development. It does require us to provide functional open space. We're actually providing double the amount of functional open space that the code would require. Does allow us to do smaller lot sizes. It's a little bit more efficient. The privacy mitigation and the architectural variation that Jay talked about were two of the things that I think helped when we explained to the neighbors the concern about the second floor, a 2-story adjacent to an existing residential single story. One of the unique aspects of KB Homes that sets it apart from a lot of other home builders is when you go into a new subdivision, if you're the first one in, you get to decide whether or not you want a 2-story or a single story. Also understanding that if it's a 2-story and it's on the edge, there are requirements under the FLD for privacy mitigation that don't exist in the underlying code. So things like the clear story windows, no balconies. If there are windows at all, they have to be clear story, no balconies, and those kinds of provisions. So again, a lot of the questions that we had at the neighborhood meeting relative to the edge being 2 stories, that was that was very helpful, and they know that we're going to have to comply with that when we come forward. The architectural variation was another one, and then we talked about reduced internal setbacks as well. I'm going to sit on this slide for just a minute, it just to highlight a couple of things. We've already talked about the density being lower. The height, the maximum height is 25 feet. That would be the maximum height for a 2-story. Single story would be somewhere between 12 and 15 feet. The functional open space, you can see we're required, what we're required and what we're providing. It's actually almost double. The community target and design, we're targeting first-time home buyers and downsizing, 2 to 4 bedroom homes, 1 and 2 stories, as I've mentioned, 1,000 to 2,500 square feet. All of these homes will have 2-car garages plus visitor parking, which will be along the street. So it'll be designed accordingly. And this is very similar to the infill projects that we're seeing throughout the city. Staff already touched on the fact we have 1 access point, which is on Dogwood. There is a secondary emergency only access up in the northeast corner. I know one of the neighbors that sent in an email wanted to make sure that that is emergency only. It is. It will allow some the pedestrian access, which is one of the staff. Parks and Rec has asked that we create that access, and we'll also have some maintenance of the landscape and drainage area that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But residential access is entirely on Dogwood, and we are consolidating a number of entrances and exits that that exist for the school into this one. The traffic statement that's a part of our application, we're required to sort of analyze the difference between an elementary school and what we're proposing. I realize it hasn't been an elementary school since 2014, so that was that most of the folks who came to our neighborhood meetings have lived there for that long, or at least remember when it was an elementary school. So that messaging did not fall flat. But it hasn't been an elementary school for a while. When you compare them, our morning peak times, we're actually have 155 less trips. A trip is one way in. So divide 155 by 2, and that's how many cars. I think that gives you a half a car, so I'm not really sure what to do about that. There you go. The afternoon, the PM trips are, if you, the typical time that you measure PM peak is 4 to 6 p.m., which is not the peak time for the schools. So from 4 to 6 p.m., we have 20 more trips, which is the equivalent of 10 cars. But again, it's not capturing the PM peak for a school, which is really 2 to 4. It misses that peak. The bottom line, and you'll see this in Marcos Esparza's report, is that the traffic over a week is very similar, if not almost exactly the same. And we're competing less with the peak times, especially in the morning, than the school does. Setbacks, I just want to touch really quickly on the north. You'll see that large common area B. North of our property line is an existing 16-foot alley. Then you have the common area. That common area ranges in width, excuse me, from 19 feet to 33 feet. That area is retention, detention, and will be landscaped, so it's providing an additional buffer. In our application, we do a little bit more math that I can come back to if you'd like me to, as to exactly how much of a buffer that is, depending on which lot you're at. But it ranges anywhere from about 19 feet from our property line. Then you add the 16 feet adjacent, all the way to 84 feet. And that's in the area with the larger buffer than the street and the sidewalk before you get to the property line. Over on the east, it's a similar 16-foot alley situation. And then the lots and the home setbacks will be 2/3 the height. So if it's a full 25-foot, it'll be a 17-foot rear yard setback. And obviously less if the height goes down. And again, that's the area where we do the privacy mitigation. And that appeased particularly our neighbor who is adjacent to 4 of those lots. So she came to both of our neighborhood meetings as well. The south, we're adjacent to Dogwood, as well as the 16-foot alley down on the south. We are doing a 10-foot landscape buffer, and then there'll be an additional minimum 10-foot rear yard setback from the property line. So the homes will be a minimum of 20 feet setback. I think the setback required in the code is really the 10 feet, but the way we've designed it, it's going to be 20 feet. We also worked with staff on the connectivity to extend that sidewalk to the park so that the neighbor, this project is going to have its own connection to the park up on the north area. We were asked by staff to create better connectivity for our neighbors to Grove Park. And a number of neighbors have indicated that they frequent there, they walk down the alley and there isn't a sidewalk. So we'll be working with staff to make that connectivity, as well as some additional connectivity up on the north for an extended bike path and then up to the park. So we worked with and appreciate staff over the last couple weeks working on those conditions to make sure we were all clear what we're providing and what we're doing. Already talked about height and parking there. We talked about each unit has 2-car garage and visitor parking. Jay mentioned that we had 2 neighborhood meetings. So we scheduled our required neighborhood meeting on November 12th. And the notices went out, and the first phone call that I got was from George, who is the president of the Groves Lincoln Neighborhood Association, and said, that's the same night that we have a meeting, which we did not do on purpose, clearly. So we went ahead and had the meeting. We did have 3 people show up at our first meeting, but then we worked with the neighborhood association to create a second opportunity a couple weeks later. And he sent the notices out through his networks, Facebook and everything for that association meeting. And that one we had 15 people come. Overall, there was support of development for the lot. There is a sense that there's a lot of activity that is not helpful to single family residential that occurs both in the park and the state land as well as on this site. There were, as I said, the questions about building heights and setbacks. We were able to address those, I think, sufficiently. I will say that 30 years of doing this work, I have never gotten to the end of a neighborhood meeting and have people ask my client to go buy a piece of property adjacent, meaning state land, and develop it also. That did occur. And I have witnesses that it did occur. So it was overall a good meeting, good questions, but overall both meetings were great. So we want to thank staff. Obviously, we worked through the conditions. We're in agreement with all of them. We respectfully request your recommendation to approve. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have now or after the public hearing.
I just have a couple of quick questions. I want to make sure I got your statement. Well, first of all, let me apologize to Mr. Sylvan.
I'll let him know.
And to you.
It's all good.
I know very well. It's not only my eyesight, but my memories. You'd stated the trips generated by the proposed residential use are roughly the same as over a week as what an elementary school would generate, but it's actually less over peak times.
Yes. Mr. Kafka, it's, see, I messed up your name too. It's in the morning, we're about 155 trips less. In the evening, we're 20 trips more. So the PM peak has 20, which is the equivalent of 10 cars.
Okay. And then if you go back to the development plan map, that one, yeah. Just so I'm clear, the neighbor that is supporting, that was concerned about the setbacks is on the east side,
Yes,
and it is her house, the one that backs up to lots 27 to 30-ish? Or is it the lower?
32 through 35.
32 through 35. Okay. All right. And then on the connectivity, we're looking at the one in the right of way on the south, and then one in the north. Those are both open pedestrian access to the park.
Yes, the one on the south, there is an existing sidewalk on Dogwood that only goes partially over to the park. So we are going to be extending that predominantly in the right of way because of the 10-foot landscape buffer, and we don't want it eating into the, neither staff nor the applicant want it eating into that 10-foot landscape buffer. So we'll be extending that sidewalk. And then on the north, we talked about it being maybe not a sidewalk, maybe some sort of multi-use path, but we will work with both DTM, Department of Transportation and Mobility, and Parks and Rec to figure out what that looks like.
Okay, thank you. And then for the emergency vehicle access off of South Queen Palm, you mentioned there'd be pedestrian access on that side also. Is that where the gate that's the ingress, the key card ingress, but free egress gate was mentioned? Is that where that is? Or is that, you can help me?
I don't, we do, yeah, come on up, Adam.
Mr. Kafka, Adam Call, KB Home Forward Planner. So in the northeast corner, you can see that green line is actually our sewer fallout. Part of that will be, we're putting an access path on there so that sewer can be maintained. That will double as our path connection to Queen Palm for the bike boulevard. And that will be, we'll be using bollards more than likely there to limit any vehicular access.
Okay. Yeah, I forget where I read about the gate. I'm not sure where that was.
A gate? No,
Yeah.
just bollards.
Just bollards. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
there's just maybe to clarify, on the northwest corner, there is a current gate from the existing park access from the school to the park. We'll probably be leaving that something similar there. So, but that's a pedestrian gate as well.
That's probably what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I think my final question, the graffiti removal condition, does that get wrapped into the any HOA document that's going to be created, or is that just the part of the zoning condition?
Typically, we do include that with the CCNRs.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other follow-up? Anybody else want to speak on this rezoning? Sir, yeah, come forward.
Apologies. Do I need to sign in first?
Yes, please. And then just while you're doing that, if you can tell me your name.
Robert Neely, Neely. down the email and phone number afterwards. No need to wait for that.
Thank you.
I am a local resident. I actually live, I would say, just 4 blocks, depending on how you count, from where they are building. And on a weekly basis, I do take my daughter to the Groves Park here. I am also a licensed real estate agent, all 8 years in Tucson, Arizona. I am familiar with the various new build communities and companies. I believe KB Homes and the designs that they have presented are going to fit as best as we could expect any in-demand new build community to fit into this neighborhood here. I do like how the access to the park, that's actually going to make a shorter walk and a safer bike ride in the future for my daughter. And I just have to say, yes, this looks good. I believe it would be in demand. And I believe that this is going to fit the community as much as we could expect any new build community to do so in terms of design while still being popular enough to sell. Oh, and I do believe it will increase the average home value in that area as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neely. Ms. Sylvan, I have just one more question. Sorry.
Yes.
Is there any indication of what, where you think folks will be coming into the other subdivisions to access this development? Is it going to be from Pantano generally, or down Queen Palm?
How far out we go. A good question. They're obviously not, I can rule out one. They are not coming from Kolb because state, there's no access. Other than ruling that out, and there's the wash goes through there. I mean, I think it'll depend on where they're all coming from. I would expect that most of them would come from the south, especially since our entrance is on Dogwood. But that's not to say that some folks might not work north on Pantano, right? And kind of come down that direction. But they'll all end up clearly on Dogwood in order to get into the subdivision. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you. All right. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this matter? All right. Seeing no one, I am closing case number TPENT 1225-00024 TUSD Lions School rezoning East Dogwood Street hearing. Thank you very much.